Hello, I Kuldeep Sharma. Welcome you all to today's session of Daily News Analysis, where we are going to look at the most important news headlines from the Hindu newspaper as well as the Indian Express. So let's start with today's news headlines. So today's newspaper, the most of the news which have come up in today's newspaper are very short and would require looking into the historical aspect of those newspaper. And most of the news are actually a repetitive of the yesterday's news only. So those news have been covered, but have been covered in very short details. So let's look at the news from today. So the first news is regarding that there is a statement by Amit Shah regarding that because there was a very good turnout in the Srinagar bypoll which happens right now, it shows, and he's saying that the turnout shows it was right to revoke Article 370, that the decision of the government to revoke Article 370 has been approved by the government and it is by the turnout shown in the elections for today. So let's study about what is Article 370. Yeah, what was Article 370? So Article 370 was one of the special provision. It was one of the special provision of Constitution. Special provision of Constitution. However, it was only a temporary provision. It was a temporary provisions in Part 21. Part 21. So Part 21 के chapter का heading is only temporary transition provisions in the Constitution, and उसके अंदर there is one article, Article 370, which basically provided special provision for state of Jammu and Kashmir. To state of Jammu and Kashmir, and certain, for example, there was a separate constitution of Jammu and Kashmir. There was different penal code. Although the language was very similar, or it was just like the India's penal code only, however it was named after Ranbir Penal Code. It was called Ranbir Penal Code. Similarly, there was a separate constitution of Jammu and Kashmir also. So what happened? So in the year 2019, exactly to be August 2019, this 370 was abrogated by the president. Was abrogated by the president, and in the December of last year only, December of last year, Supreme Court actually allowed this abrogation. The Supreme Court held that the abrogation is valid. So apart from this particular abrogation, there was one particular act known as Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act. There was this particular act known as Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of 2019. And what is important with regard to this act? First, it created two separate UT of Jammu and Kashmir, and the other was UT of Ladakh. So it created two union territories. Apart from it, it did not dissolve. It did not end the legislative assembly status. It did not end the legislative assembly status of Jammu and Kashmir, which means although the elections for the legislative assembly has not happened for the last 4-5 years, the legislative assembly still exists in the books of Reorganization Act 2016, and as per it, it would be for a tenure of 5 years. So it will have a tenure of 5 years, जैसे हर किसी स्टेट का होता है, similarly स्टेट का भी 5 year का tenure होगा a legislative assembly. However, the head of the executive in the state would be LG. Lieutenant Governor, Lieutenant Governor जो LG होगा, he would be the head of the executive. And next point is, it has also increased the seats in legislative assembly. It has also increased the seats in legislative assembly from 111 to 114. So right now there would be 114 legislative assembly seats, or 114 MLAs would be elected for the state assembly of the Jammu and Kashmir whenever the new elections take place. And out of this 114, 24 seats are reserved for Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So there is no reservation of seats in our Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. However, there are 24 seats which are reserved for the POK region in the Legislative Assembly of the state. So these are some of the points under this. Apart from it, it also tells you that public order and police public order and police, which are usually under the state, would be actually under the center through the Lieutenant Governor. So these are some of the changes which has been brought up by the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act. Let's go through these points once again. So it is the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act which has created a union territory of Jammu and Kashmir and another a union territory of Ladakh. Second, it has withhold a legislative assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, which would have a tenure of 5 years. So earlier it was 6 years, now it would be of 5 years. Next, who is going to be the head of the executive? It would be the LG, Lieutenant Governor. There is an increase in seats in legislative assembly. So from 111, now there would be 114 seats. And earlier also there were reserved seats. Right now also there would be reserved seats in the new law also. So 24 seats are reserved for the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And finally, public order and police is going to be under the control of the center through the office of LG. So usually the police power, the public order power, law and order power is with the state. जो आपकी state list होती है उसके अंदर ये मेंशन होता है. However, this power has been kept with the Lieutenant Governor only. So these are some of the facts with regard to Article 370. Moving on. So again, like I told you, there is a repetition of news from yesterday's newspaper. So again, this news is a continuation of yesterday's newspaper only. So yesterday, India and Iran actually signed up agreement. India and Iran signed an operational agreement for continuation of Chahabar port. And what the US has stated, if the India continues with this pact, that there is a potential risk of sanction. So usually US puts sanction on any country who is in trade with Iran. So earlier also, when in the year 2018, when India entered into this agreement with Iran for the first time, that time also there were risk of sanction. However, in 2018, India was able to get exception for it. India was able to get exception from US. It does not mean that the US does not put sanctions on countries who are in trade with Iran. However, India was able to get sanction. However, now what they have stated, that there is a risk of sanction in case of this. And let's study some more facts about Chahabar. If you want to do it in detail, please go through the yesterday's newspaper analysis. There you will find out. However, a small repetition. So Chahabar port is designed to counter. It is designed to counter the Gwadar port of Pakistan, which is part of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Moreover, it is part of INSTC, International North-South Transport Corridor. I repeat, International North-South Transport Corridor, which is a joint project of Russia, Iran, and India. So starting from Mumbai in India, it will go to Bandar Abbas and then finally to Russia's St. Petersburg in Europe. So if you want to do it in detail, please go through the yesterday's news recording of news analysis. Moving on to the third one. So there is an interview of the present chairman of ISRO, Shiv Kumar. S. Somnath's interview is there. And there he is talking about the new satellite which is to be launched by the ISRO. So let's talk about that particular satellite. So that satellite is known as the Nisar satellite, and this Nisar satellite is a joint project of NASA and ISRO. NASA and ISRO, so US and India. It's a joint project, and as the name suggests, NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar. Synthetic aperture radar. What kind of satellite is Nisar actually? So it's a Earth observatory satellite. So it will map the Earth. It's an Earth observatory satellite. And what is special about the Nisar satellite? That it would be able to map the Earth. It will map the Earth twice a month. So एक चक्कर ये एक महीने में लगा लेगी. So it would be in 15 days लगा लेगी, which means in a month period it will be able to rotate and map the Earth fully twice. Okay. Apart from it, what is the main objective of this? So this Nisar satellite, the major responsibility of this is going to map the Earth so that we can find out climate change impact. We would be able to find out climate change impact, and not just climate change, it is also going to help us to look at the vegetation cover. to look at groundwater also, to map groundwater also, because it would be able to penetrate the ground also. So vegetation cover, groundwater cover, as well as water bodies and track agriculture also. Track agriculture. So these would be some of the objectives of this, and primarily it would have two bands. Radar would have two bands. One would be the S band and the other is your L band. So this is a short introduction about the NISAR satellite. So in this interview, he is not just talking about the NISAR satellite, it is also talking about the next mission to moon, the Chandrayaan-4 mission. So I hope you know, like last year, India was able to successfully conduct Chandrayaan-3. And a question which came up in your previous year or last year CLAT was, what is the name of the lander and rover? So be a good student and try to find out the name of the lander and rover which was there in the Chandrayaan-3. And interestingly, there was a lander and rover in Chandrayaan-2 also, and the name of the lander and rover kept intact. So whatever the name was there for Chandrayaan-2, the same names were there for the lander and rover for Chandrayaan-3 also. And if you know the names of the lander and rover, first write the name of the lander and then the rover in the comment box. So comment the name of the lander and rover in the comment box of the Chandrayaan-3. So now Chandrayaan-4 is supposed to be launched at the end of this decade. So usually maybe in 2030. So this year is not important, but what would be the main objective of Chandrayaan-4? So it is to bring samples, to bring moon rock samples. Moon rock samples to Earth. So this is your Chandrayaan-4. Apart from it, he is also talking about Gaganyaan mission. So I hope you know Gaganyaan mission is related to sending Indian or sending an Indian to space. It's India's space mission. And one more program is your Shukrayaan. And we also don't know when this would be launched, but Shukrayaan is related to your exploration of Venus or study of Venus planet. Study of Venus planet. So these are some of the space mission which S. Somnath has talked about in this particular interview. So let's move on. So next is our editorial known as the lame excuses. So it is in regard to the Manipur violence which is still continuing in the state of Manipur. So for the last more than a year now, the violence which is going on between ethnic violence which is going on in the state of Manipur is still continuing. And this is a one editorial where he is criticizing the current CM, the current Chief Minister of Manipur, and Biren Singh. And this article is arguing basically that he is actually giving excuses to cross-border trade, drug trade. Actually, it is the failure of law and order, the failure of public order on behalf of that government, which is leading to continuous in violence in that region. So let's study about what is the Manipur violence case. So Manipur violence के अंदर actual में हो क्या रहा है? So majorly there are two community involved. One is your Methi community, which is the majority community, and the other primary tribal community is the Kuki-Zo community. So these are the two communities which are fighting. So Methi are around 64% population. And you can understand the significance that out of the 60 seats in Manipur, 40 seats, 40 MLAs are the Methis. And that is the reason why Chief Minister Biren Singh is actually being totally biased in favor of the Methi community. He is also a Methi, and 40 out of 60 MLAs are also from the Methi groups. And Kuki-Zo is not a large community. I can't even say that the rest of the population of Kuki-Zo, rest of the population, the 35% population is actually of tribals. So basically these Methi peoples live in the valley region, the Imphal Valley to be exact, which is around 10% geographical area of that state. On the other hand, the Kuki-Zomi or the tribes are the hill people. They live in the hilly areas which actually constitute the 90% area of the state. So what is the background of it? So since 2012, Methis have been asking ST status. They have been demanding a ST status. Kuki-Zo are recognized ST tribes. And because of this ST status, Kuki-Zomi tribe actually can be found in many government offices. So they have been able to use the reservation to their advantage, and they have been able to enter different government offices. However, at the same time, although they are a majority, still they are not able to have such kind of penetration in the government sector or in the government jobs as compared to the Kuki-Zo. So they have been demanding a Métis status, ST status since 2012. So there was a case going on in Manipur High Court. And in the last few years, there was certain progress in that case also. And finally, in 2023, the Manipur High Court actually asked the government to prepare a report. So while this was going on in the month of April of 2023, in month of April of 2023, the tribal groups, the tribal student group actually took out a march, a protest march. They took out a protest march on the street, and because of which, in a protest against this protest march, the Métis community actually launched a violent strike, or a violence actually began in the state of Manipur. So that is how the violence began here. So this is the background of this. Now what has happened? So N. Biren Singh has been blaming the Indo-Myanmar border, open border. So there has been a kind of an open border between India and Myanmar, and N. Biren Singh is claiming that because of the open border, there is drug trade. Drug trade as well as illegal immigration is there. Illegal immigration is there. However, the author or the article is arguing, this editorial is arguing, that these are not the correct reason. The correct reason or the actual reason is the failure of the N. Biren Singh government to actually control the Metis people or the militant people in the Metis community. So that is the main reason. So what he has argued is, he has argued, N. Biren Singh has argued that we should end the free movement regime. So there is a free movement regime, which is the open border, which is actually related to the open border policy between India and Myanmar. So we actually started this FMR in the year 2018 between India and Myanmar, and tribals on both sides of the borders could actually move in one or the other country up to 16 kilometers without visa. Without visa, they can move it. And now the N. Biren Singh government as well as the Home Ministry has stated that we are going to scrap FMR. We have to scrap FMR. So this is one of the solution proposed. Apart from it, the government has also agreed to fencing the Indo-Myanmar border. So fencing of the Indo-Myanmar border as well as the scrapping of the free movement regime are some of the recommendation which has been made by it. And as this article argues that it is not these particular reasons, but the failure of an order on behalf of the government which is leading to more violence in the state. So moving on. Next is the challenge of extrapulmonary TB. So again, TB is continuously in use. We discussed it earlier also. Let's study about certain facts about TB, and let's understand what is extrapulmonary TB. So TB, as you may know, is caused by a bacteria. It is caused by a bacteria known as Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So as the TB says, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So second thing, it's a contagious disease, which means it can spread from person to person. Person to person, it can spread from air droplet, water droplets. The bacteria can actually move from one person to another. It's a contagious disease. Third question is there a vaccine for it? So yes, there is a vaccine known as BCG vaccine. It is known as a BCG, Bacillus Cumulate-Guerin vaccine. It is after the name of the founders of this vaccine. So there is a vaccine. Is there a treatment or a cure? So answer would be yes. There is a treatment and a cure also for this vaccine. Yes, present. So there are different kinds of multi-drug therapy. So knowing the name of those drugs is not important. It's a multi-drug therapy for which by which you can actually treat TB. However, we'll come about this, whether the treatment is possible or not. The fully treatment is possible or not. What is the government portal? What is the government portal where all the cases of TB are registered? So that portal is known as Nikshay. NIKSHAY. So it is this portal where all the cases of the TB cases are actually reported there only. So let's look at how successful is the treatment of TB. So one of the problem which India is facing and the world is facing in TB treatment is that the bacteria which causes TB, the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, is actually evolving. It is evolving and it is getting immune. It is getting immune to, or I'll say resistance to your antibacterial medicines. It is getting resistance to antibacterial medicines, because of which the first line of drugs. So usually whatever drugs were being provided, a person is not responding to those treatment. So that's why we call it such kind of TB as multi-drug resistant TB, known as MDR TB. So it's a severe form of TB. It's a severe form of TB, multi-drug resistant TB. And not just this, the bacteria, the Mycobacterium has also evolved. Some of the strains of this bacteria has also evolved and have turned into XDR TB, extremely drug resistant tuberculosis. And for this, as of now, we do not have treatment. We do not have any treatment. And let's understand what these authors are arguing about. So these authors are talking about extrapulmonary TB, or as it has been, like most of the people think that TB is actually done only in lungs. So it only affects the lungs, which is actually not true. The lungs, the TB which affects the lung is known as the pulmonary TB. Pulmonary TB, but it is not the case. The TB can affect many parts of your organs or many organs of the body. For example, it also can also affect your brain, your guts, your eyes, and your limbs also. Limbs, basically your hands and legs, and other parts of the body also it can also affect. So these authors are arguing that because the focus has only been on the pulmonary TB or on the elimination of pulmonary TB, still there are forms of extrapulmonary TB. There are extrapulmonary TB also, which also needs our focus, and they have provided our data wherein they are stating that around 20% of the cases in India are actually of the extrapulmonary TB, which requires our urgent attention. Apart from it, certain facts which you should know is that India has 20% burden, 27% share. India shares 27% burden of TB cases in the world. So 27% burden जो है TB cases का, it is on India. And actually India is at the first number when it's come to number of TB cases as well as cases of deaths. So mortality is also highest in India, and as well as the TB cases is also highest in India. However, India has put up an ambitious plan to eliminate TB. So the TB elimination target of India is actually 2025. So in the comment box, if you know this, what is the WHO target? So if you know the answer, what is the WHO target to eliminate TB from the world? So you have to tell me that in the comment box. So this is article with regarding your extrapulmonary TB. Moving on. So in yesterday class, we actually discussed the consumer price index, which is actually used to calculate the retail inflation. Here we are talking about wholesale inflation, and there is this particular index which is used to calculate the wholesale inflation. So it is the wholesale price index, WPI index, which is actually used to find out inflation or increase in price. Inflation basically means rise in prices of goods at the wholesale level, at the buyer level. So from producer to the shopkeeper, and shopkeeper to consumer. So CPI index, consumer price index, retail inflation is at the retail level, basically from shopkeeper to consumer. However, the WPI level is between the producer and the shopkeeper level, whoever is a wholesaler. And we basically, there are three components. So we basically track three components in the wholesale price index. One is your primary articles, basically your food and non-food articles. Second is your fuel and power. And third is your manufacturing. Third is your manufacturing sector. Next fact, which is important for you. So we track these are the three components: primary articles, fuel and power, and the manufacturing sector, by which we calculate the WPI index. Next is who actually publishes the WPI index. So it is Office of Economic Advisor. Office of Economic Advisor in Department for Promotion of Industries and Internal Trade under Ministry of Commerce. Under Ministry of Commerce, they would. And you should also know the base year. So base year is actually 2011-12. So that is the base year. So I hope you remember CPI ka base year was 2012. So for all the indices and various other index and different kind of measurement tools, we actually use the base year of 2012 or 2011-12 only. So for this also it is right now 2011-12. You should know it is published by Office of Economic Advisor. CPI is actually published by NSO, National Statistic Organization, or Central Statistic Organization, which is under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So these are some of the facts regarding wholesale price index, where we try to measure the changes in prices at the level of the shopkeeper. Moving on, so there is one article from Indian Express also. Most of the articles are repeated, like I told you yesterday, because I had a wider coverage of Indian Express in yesterday's newspaper. Those news actually have come up in today's Hindu newspaper, so that's why it would be a repetition. However, there's this one article from the experience section where they are talking about the new variant known as a flood variant. So if you remember COVID-19, so there were many variants or subtypes of this particular virus. Those were, for example, the initial one was alpha. Next came beta, then came the delta virus, and then came the Omicron virus. So all of these are actually Greek letters only. And finally, right now we have a flood virus. We have the flood virus, which is a new virus in 2024, subvariant of 2024. So this article is regarding that. So you should remember what is this flood virus. So flood virus is actually the name, or is actually the nickname of the KP2 variant. KP2 variant of the COVID-19 virus, and it is actually a descendant. It is a descendant of Omicron. It is a descendant of Omicron virus, and that is known as JN1. So JN1 was a subtype of Omicron virus, and the flood virus, which is the nickname of KP2 variant, is actually a descendant of this Omicron virus only. And why it has come up in news? Because there is an increase in cases. Increase in cases in US, UK, South Korea, and also in India. However, the main caution which we should be concerned with is, should you worry? Should you and I be worried about this particular variant? And the health authorities have stating that there is nothing to worry about. So there is nothing to worry about, although this is more contagious. It is very contagious. It is spreading very fast. It is spreading very fast. Still, the cases of mortality or serious illness are actually very low. They are very low. So next question would come is whether extra doses of vaccine would help. Extra doses of vaccine, would it help? The answer is no. So a booster dose would not help. Why this would not help? Because one interesting thing with KP2 or the flood virus is that it is immune. It is immune to earlier vaccines. It is immune to earlier vaccines. It is immune to earlier vaccines or previous infections. So booster dose won't help in that case because it is immune to earlier vaccines or previous infections. So yes, the booster dose is not required in such cases. So this is regarding this particular virus. You can read this also if you want to know it in detail. However, the points which I provide you is more than enough to understand the flood virus or the flood variant of the COVID virus. So that's it from today's session of daily news analysis. I hope to see you in the next class with a new set of news headlines. So thank you and have a very nice day from my side.